Hello, and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host, Rob. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Way of Mercy monk, which, by the way, is probably my favorite monk subclass in the game. At least in my opinion, the best, anyway. And yeah, I know some of you are already saying that that's a pretty low bar, because we're talking about monks, but today we're going to try to be positive and uplifting, and not just, dunk on monks the way we usually do. We're going to be nice to monks today, okay? We'll look at one of their better subclasses they have. So we want to try to build on that. Be positive, okay? Anyways, so Way of Mercy monk. Oh, another reason to be positive about it is because you're always going to have that one or two people who want to play a monk just to spite you. And at least if you steer them towards the Way of Mercy and away from, like, say, 4 elements, at least you'll be giving them the better alternatives from the monk class, not the worst ones. So bear that in mind. Anyways, level 3, you're going to get Implements of Mercy. You gain proficiency in the Insight and Medicine skills, and you gain proficiency with the Herbalism kit. More skill proficiencies is not a bad thing. Insight's nice, Medicine and Herbalism, if you have a healer's kit, those things are kind of a little irrelevant, but today we're talking about the good, just the good. So, don't be too harsh on them for that. You also get a special mask, which for some reason I read as a spectral mask, and a spectral mask sounded way cooler, but it's a special mask which you often wear when using the features of this subclass. I don't know why you often wear them. It never explains it. You don't need it for anything. It doesn't give you bonuses. It does maybe look cool, right? That's something at least, but I don't know why you would choose to wear it if you didn't want to. Anyways, you can determine its appearance or generate it randomly by rolling on the Merciful Mask table. And believe it or not, they have a table just for your mask that doesn't do anything. But you could have like a raven or a black and white mask, crying visage, laughing visage, skull, or butterfly. You can just go the whole plague doctor thing, just that. Anyways, that's not the big deal. We also get 2 more abilities at level 3, which is pretty good. 3 different abilities. So we get Hand of Healing. Our Mystical Touch can mend wounds. As an action, you can spend 1 key point to touch a creature and restore a number of hit points equal to a roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier. When you use your Flurry of Blows, you can replace one of the unarmed attacks with the use of this feature without spending a key point for the healing. And that is where it really shines, I want to point out. Instead of using your action to heal somebody, you could use your action to attack, then spend that 1 key point you would have spent anyways to Flurry of Blows, make 1 offhand attack still, and also heal somebody. That suddenly becomes very, very good. I like that quite a bit. Also, once you have lots of key points, there's nothing stopping you from using like multiple types of abilities like this in a round, although you will blow through your key points very quickly, so bear that in mind. But I actually think that ability is quite good. I will say, though, that as much movement as monks have, any extra movement you can get for this ability would probably not be a bad idea. The mobility feat, starting with like Wood Elf or something for bonus movement, just anything, get as much movement as possible, because you may find yourselves wanting to move around the battlefield a bunch to heal your allies. And this is a bonus action heal. That's kind of like a healing word, except it is touch only, not ranged. But it's only 1 key point, which is pretty cheap, and it's actually a really, really solid ability. It's not even using your entire bonus action. You're just replacing 1 of your Flurry of Blows attacks with a heal instead. And the heal is guaranteed. The Flurry of Blows could miss, so bear that in mind. Anyways, we also get Hand of Harm. You use your key to inflict wounds, which is much more up our alley, I think. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to deal extra necrotic damage equal to 1 roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier. You can use this feature only once per turn. So you can't just go crazy on somebody and use 4 key points to drop this over and over again in the same turn. I will point out that necrotic damage is pretty reliable. It's not the best, but it's pretty solid. Now, it's not as good as magical weapon damage, which your fist will become later. So, there is that. If you're fighting like undead and stuff, this becomes a little more, shaky as to whether or not it's going to be solid. But if you compare it to, say, a Flurry of Blows, this happens after you've already hit. Again, the Flurry of Blows attack could miss, right? In which case, it's not guaranteed damage. This, you've already hit, and now you just decide, I'm going to spend my key point and do that extra martial arts dive damage, plus my wisdom mod. Probably not quite as good as your dex mod, but not bad either, right? Anyway, so you got 3 abilities at level 3. Very solid. Level 6, Physician's Touch. You can administer even greater cures with a touch. And if you feel it's necessary, you can use your knowledge to cause harm. It's always necessary, who are we kidding? When you use your Hand of Healing on a creature, you can also end one disease or one of the following conditions affecting the creature: blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. Those are some pretty handy conditions to be able to alleviate. And notice it's not requiring you to do anything extra. It's if you're going to use your ability to heal that guy anyway. Now, he might not be missing many wounds at this point. You may just decide, I'm going to heal him to remove paralyzed, for example, because that's pretty awful. So as a bonus action, you could be doing that. I mean, that makes it more efficient than, say, a lay hands. If you need to cure disease, that's taking the paladin's action. It's pretty decent. When you use the Hand of Harm on a creature, you can subject that creature to the poison condition until the end of your next turn. Now, this ability is particularly awesome in my opinion, especially because there's no saving throw given. Now, I know some people will say that poisoned is one of the most popular conditions for things to be immune to. That is true. It's one of the most common immune types for monsters in the game. However, there's also way more creatures that aren't immune to poison than creatures that are. So it's still going to be pretty good a lot of the times. And if you consider it, you might have been using, say, a Stunning Strike instead. Stunning Strike, when it lands, is a great ability. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's very, very solid. The problem with Stunning Strike, as we all know, if you've ever used it yourself or seen somebody else at your table use it, is that it gives a saving throw. It's a Constitution saving throw, which statistically is the worst saving throw to target in the game. More monsters have high con saves than anything else. And because it's a saving throw, it means that as you get to higher levels, you start encountering things with legendary saves, and they can just, even if they fail, they can just now, no, I passed instead. I just used a legendary save. So Stunning Strike, while it's a better condition when it works, is by no means a guarantee. This, as long as you think they're not going to be immune to poison, then you just poison them, and it lasts until the end of your next turn. And, that means they have disadvantage on all their attacks. It's very, very powerful. So I think that that's an excellent ability. And in addition to that, we're still using our Hand of Harm. We're still doing that extra damage from that ability to this target. I like the fact that these are just building on those early abilities. We're not replacing them. As nice as giving us different options are, this is like, oh, you could already do everything you did before, and now you can do this on top of it, which is just even better, right? And again, it's not using more key points. It's just using that one key point we spent already on that ability that we got at level 3, right? 1 point. And, our key are coming back on a short rest. That's not bad at all. When you compare this to a lot of other monk subclasses, one of my big problems with monks is that all your main abilities are using key. All your subclass abilities are using key. I mean, imagine if Eldritch Knights had to use some sort of common thing common to fighters. Like maybe it had to use your hit dice to cast your spells instead of giving you spell slots, It would be a much, much worse subclass suddenly, because now in order to use your abilities for your subclass, you're having to use the same resources you have to use for your core fighter abilities. And finally, we get some monk subclasses, with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, who are like, hey, you know what? We're going to just let you use these abilities with a 1 or 2 key point expenditure, and then we're just going to build on those with that same initial investment. We're not going to keep forcing you to spend more and more key when it's conflicting with your core abilities of the entire class. So I think this is a definitely a good direction for Wizards of the Coast to go in when they designed the class. Anyways, level 11. Flurry of Healing and Harm. You can now mete out a flurry of comfort and hurt. Mostly hurt, of course. When you use Flurry of Blows, you can now replace each of the unarmed strikes you use with your Hand of Healing without spending key points for the healing. So you still spend that one initial key point to use your Flurry of Blows, but now you're not spending any key points for the healing, and you can be doing it on all the strikes. So you can literally, as a bonus action, heal 2 party members in 1 round. That's pretty sweet. In addition, when you make an unarmed strike with Flurry of Blows, you can use Hand of Harm on that strike without spending the key point for Hand of Harm. You can still use Hand of Harm only once per turn. But, now it's not even costing you the 1 key point. And notice that it doesn't have to be, it does have to be with your Flurry of Blows, of course, still. But, not too bad. You're not having to spend key points for it only once per turn still. But either way, I like it a lot. And anyways, on to level 17, which is our capstone ability. Hand of Ultimate Mercy. This is the first one that actually is a different ability instead of just building on those original 2, essentially. Your mastery of life energy opens the door to the ultimate mercy. In other words, killing people. That's what they meant. They're just trying to be sneaky about it. As an action, you can touch the corpse of a creature that died within the past 24 hours and expend 5 key points. That's a little pricey, but we'll get to that in a second. The creature then returns to life, regaining a number of hit points equal to 4d10 plus your wisdom modifier. Alright, that's not huge at this level, but it's not nothing either, right? If the creature died while subject to any of the following conditions, it revives with them removed. Blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. Once you use a feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Now, to be honest, I might have been doing this wrong the entire time, but anytime we've ever resurrected somebody, if they've been blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned, we just removed that condition anyway. We thought that it kind of went away when he died, and maybe it wasn't supposed to. Maybe that's just something that we've done wrong this entire time. That's just my own house games. So who knows, right? Maybe this was a lesson that, I guess you were poisoned and that you died from poison, and then we resurrected you and you'd still probably be poisoned. That does kind of make sense. But it's something we never really worried about. So maybe we should have been. Who knows? Either way, that feature wouldn't be particularly useful in my games. But there are some things that are useful. Number 1, some of your low-level resurrection spells, like Revivify, etc., they have some pretty harsh penalties for the person who got resurrected. They also have some very restrictive time limits, like Revivify, they have to die within 1 minute, right? If you had a NPC that he gets murdered, you find the king's been murdered, and now you want to find out who did it. Speak with Dead gives you some, 5 questions, but the answers are very cryptic and not necessarily helpful. You could just have the monk bring the king back to life and find out who did it. And if the king got poisoned, he's now no longer poisoned either. Nice to know. That could be pretty handy. Now, yes, the cleric could do that with a spell slot by using one of their spells, although Revivify is probably not going to do it unless the king got murdered within the last minute. The other thing, though, is that the cleric spells have very expensive material components. Like, especially by 17th level, you could be casting the highest level of resurrection spells in the game. But things like True Resurrection have components that cost in the tens of thousands of gold piece. And that's per cast, 1 cast, 25,000 gold could just be gone like that. And you don't have to worry about with this. There's also some other nice things that I like about it. Like I said, without a lot of downside or restrictions. Maybe the cleric didn't want to use his 1 and only 9th level spell to resurrect an NPC. Not to mention spend a hugely expensive spell in the process, right? But the monk could do it, and then if you short rest, you get those key points back. So really, you've expended nothing for that. You could always use it to resurrect the cleric if the cleric dies, because that's always awkward when you've got, we don't got to worry about it, we've got the cleric. And then the cleric's the one who dies, and you're like, now we're in trouble. So, that's kind of nice. And yeah, by a lot of campaigns, I mean, most of them never get to 17 anyway, although a lot of mine do, I'll point out. But if they do, you might be like, oh, well, we've got Wish, we've got True Resurrection, we've got a million one other things. But some games, you never die at high level. Other games are pretty brutal because the DM is just throwing at you against like entire armies of demons and stuff and fighting demon lords at the same time, and your party dies all the time. So bear that in mind. Or you do what I did and make the mistake of putting the party against a NPC who loved to mind control people, and with her 30 charisma and her whatever the spell save DC was, which was astronomically high though, as you can guess, with 30 charisma, then she mind controls the arcane archer and he shoots the wizard and kills him, and then decides, well, firstly knocks him unconscious, but then decides to action surge, walk up to the wizard's corpse and pump more arrows into him while he's laying on the ground bleeding out. And then you're like, yeah, that was probably a little overpowered. Maybe a charm effect might have been better, but just straight up mind control and now you work for her might have been a little much. Then she mind controlled the paladin after the arcane archer broke free, and that almost went badly for the party as well. It was a pretty rough fight, needless to say. Homebrewing your own NPCs for like little CR 26 type range, 27, that can be a little rough sometimes, fine-tuning the numbers. But anyways, that has nothing to do with the Way of Mercy Monk. Either way, though, it is a 17th level feature, and yes, on the downside, clerics can cast Revivify as soon as 5th level. So, Revivify is often just as good. But this is a lot more powerful than Revivify, and it's a lot cheaper than True Resurrection, or Resurrection, and you're not going to come back in a different body like Reincarnation. So I do think that there's some good stuff about it in general. As far as the rest of the abilities, though, I really like the the Healing Hand and the Hand of Harm. I think both are good abilities. I like the way that your subsequent monk abilities from this subclass build on them, instead of like replacing them or just giving you alternate effects. Instead, it's like, no, you get that first effect, plus you get this one on top of that. And all for the same low cost. Like, to me, that's a very, very good way to build the monk. And it's something they should have been probably doing since the beginning, to be honest. So overall, I quite like the Way of Mercy Monk. If somebody at my table says they're playing a monk, there is a part of me that kind of winces inside. But if they say they're going to be playing a Way of Mercy Monk, I'll be like, oh, okay, good. That's actually pretty decent. And the fact that they can do extra damage, the fact that they can do some healing, they can remove some nasty status conditions. Those are all very useful abilities. And, if they learn how to dodge and not tank with their faces, then that's also pretty good. So overall, I mean, you got a class that has a lot of mobility and, could potentially be healing a couple people as like bonus actions while also still attacking. Those are all pretty solid abilities. You could like heal one guy with your flurry of blows while damaging another guy and, making your regular attacks. It's actually pretty decent. So, like I said, today is the day we give monks some love and appreciation. The next few videos are probably not going to be quite as forgiving of monks because we're going to be looking at some of the less attractive subclasses. Yeah. However, after that, we're going to do a few monks videos, and then we're going to jump into the paladin videos, starting, of course, with our paladin multiclassing tier guide list, which should also be a very uplifting video if you like paladins, because there's a lot to like in that category. But we won't spoil that. We'll save it for paladins. Anyways, that's everything. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, of course, and most importantly, like I always say, leave me your comments in the comment section. I love reading everybody's comments, and even the negative ones, I can always learn from them too. Hopefully more positive ones, though. Those are always good as well. I love seeing other people's build ideas, and I'd love to hear. I've never played Way of Mercy Monk yet. To be fair, I've never played any monks in D&D yet, 5th edition yet. I've played them in other editions. But I have seen a lot of people at my table who have played monks. But nobody's played Way of Mercy yet. So hopefully one of my players will look at this and decide Oh, well, I was gonna make more terrible monks, but I'll try one of the better monks for once. That would be a welcome addition at the table finally. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.